the latest tally of expenditures combined in the gubernatorial race is now more than $91 million. Now that's a big number, but relative to what? Well, we're on pace now to be double total expenditures versus the 2010 campaign, actually, which was itself a record. But you and I have talked a little bit about this, David. I think maybe you and Steve have talked about it. Beyond just sort of the wow factor of the number of ads that we're seeing in this state on that race, in Iowa on the Senate race, what's it getting the campaigns in terms of their overall investment here in TV time?
We're in uncharted territory. There are numbers I heard in Iowa a couple of weeks ago. This isn't even at the end. Each side had 7,000 gross rating points. People will see 70 ads a week from these campaigns. I mean, I think and they're largely negative. I mean, I think it contributes to the sour mood. Yeah. And there is a question of efficacy. A mutual friend of ours, Mike Murphy, who's on the board of the IOP, another Republican consultant, said the other day that, if a grand piano falls on your head, you don't need another grand piano to fall on your head. The first one does the job. And so I think that, there's going to be an evaluation of this after. The question is, can we stop? That we're in like this mad proliferation here, and the notion is, well, if they've got 5,000 gross rating points, we have to have 5,000 gross rating points.
Yeah, it's an arms race.
It is an arms race, and I don't know how. We're spending 4 times as much this year, at least, as we were just a few years ago. These outside groups are now in these battleground states, in these big races. They displaced the party as major funders of the oligarchs who are now funding candidates. It's really out of control, and I don't think it's. I think you pass a point of effectiveness, and it may become counterproductive. But I don't know if people can stop. I don't know where you think this is going.
I think that. I had the experience in the 2012 campaign. I was living in Nevada, a swing state. It was the first race in 20 years that I was doing no campaign. So I was a normal person sitting at home, and but not a disinterested observer watching the ads. And I would try. Now, this may speak to my attention deficit disorder more than the efficacy of the ads, but I would try to watch the 5-minute block on whatever show, and it was all wall-to-wall negative ads. And, after 2.5 minutes, it would just short-circuit my brain. I was seeing golden retrievers running around fields, in my mind's eye.
That was the Viagra.
And and so I don't think that they're particularly effective. I mean, I think that if you communicate with 5,000 gross rating points, you're gonna have 70 ads, and the ads are loaded with negative information. 100 negative data points of what a horrible person this is. There's no thematic connection to them. I think that you can use advertising to communicate a couple of big things and big ideas. I don't think it's a particularly effective medium to communicate hundreds of little things. And I think these ads accumulate to communicating hundreds of little things that may form an impression, and generally that impression is we hate both of these people. So I think that when I look back over my career in political advertising, and I think the Obama campaign was effective on this by going early in 2012, and you understood the big point that the campaign was trying to get across. And the way that politics works is the pollsters will come in and they'll say that look, this issue, we ought to put this issue in the ad, this issue in the ad, this issue in the ad. And the way that the ads roll out, it's chapter 7 followed by chapter 9, followed by chapter 32, followed by chapter 2, and it doesn't make any sense. When you accumulate it all together, there's not a narrative flow, where you're telling a story. And increasingly, I think that as more money is spent, the less narrative is being presented in a way that is simply throwing negative information against the wall, doesn't make, an overall thematic argument and case.
And more difficult even now with the outside groups, because the
absolutely.
campaign isn't controlling the narrative.
And there is, and I have a prejudice on this, having spent a lot of time in California, but I think a lot of trends, come out of California for good and for bad in the rest of the country. And I think California has answered the question, and it was in Meg Whitman's race. Can you spend too much money in a political campaign and advertising? And I think in 2010, that question was answered, and the answer was yes, you can, in a way that backfires on you and doesn't communicate anything to anyone.